because recently there's been a whole bunch of times when I'm trying to get her to sleep, or just trying to get her to calm down, or get her bored enough to sleep. And a good way of doing that is to just put something on that she just sort of watches, and then eventually she just kind of like falls asleep.
She goes.
And I know, as with everything when it comes to child rearing, there's going to be people who are going to be like, "Oh no, you can't let your child fall asleep in front of a TV." I'm like, look, this is about survival, all right. So
If it gets her to sleep, it
yeah,
works.
if it works, then I'm going to give myself Father of the Year. So and because there's a whole bunch of things and there's one of the reasons why my progress of watching certain things has been slow, because you watch it and you go, oh, bad word, off. She started repeating words, not watching that, and they start realizing just how many things have bad words in them nowadays. I think we're getting to the point where they're no longer going to be bad words; they're just going to be words. But by the moment I'm like, okay, no, can't watch that. So I've been trying to go through and find a whole bunch of animated stuff for her to watch. So this is something that, Sharon, you are never going to watch, and I. I know you're never gonna watch it because it's animated. It's never gonna happen. But I thought I'll go and give you some, like, news from the world of animation that I've been living in. And this is a Netflix original film called The Willoughbys, based on a book. If that piques your interest, I know, like, you have.
I'm below. More interesting.
Yeah, I know that you have that whole thing where you're like, animated, based on a book. Ooh, so it's sort of like. It's based on a book, based on a kid's book. It's called The Willoughbys, and it's all about this. It's about these two people who are the Willoughbys, or Mr. and Mrs. Willoughby, who get married, and they are so involved in each other, and such a love you, and then a child shows up, and they're like, what? How did this happen? And so they're like, how did this happen? And so they neglect their child, but then somehow I managed to have three other children, a daughter and two twin sons. And the whole story is told from the point of view of the children. So the Willoughbys are these neglected children who have a mother and father who are so involved in each other and so into each other that they do not have any time for their children. They don't have any time for their kids. And this film has a very sort of Tim Burton-ish vibe to it, in that, you know how Tim Burton will always have these family stories but have like an immense heart of darkness about them. And this is no different, because the kids decide that, you know what would be great? It would be great if we were orphans, because if we were orphans, then we could do whatever we wanted, and we could have this and all that, and we could be real Willoughbys, because they have like a whole family history of Willoughbys that their parents don't live up to. And the oldest son is like, no, we need to be adventurous, or we need to be this, or we need to be that. So they come up with an idea of getting the parents to go on holiday. But they plot a holiday that essentially the parents are not going to come back from. They plot a holiday that the parents are not going to come back from, and the parents are like, "What? You mean?" And the hook that they use to get the parents to go on this holiday is no children allowed. And the parents are like, "No children allowed! Brilliant!" Pack everything up, leave, and go for this globe-trotting holiday where it's like the most dangerous things you can possibly do, which they are pretty much sure that the parents are going to come back from. And to give you an idea of the kind of there's a whole bunch of strands coming into this film. I think that there's way too many strands coming into it. To give you the idea of the kind of humor that we're dealing with here, they find this kid. A kid gets dumped on their doorstep. And so they take the kid and they're like, oh, let's look after the kid. And they're like, no, look, our parents can't stand us. How are they going to, how do you think they're going to do? How do you think they're going to handle another kid who just shows up? And then they go, oh, what should we call her? And because the older son wants to get rid of the baby, he's like, let's call her Ruth, because when we get rid of her, then we'll be ruthless. That's the level that we're dealing with here. That's the kind of level. That's the kind of level we're dealing with here. So as the plan unfolds, there's a nanny that comes to the house, and the nanny comes to the house to look after them while the parents are away. And then there's a whole thing about, like, the nanny and then where they end up giving Ruth to, and then child services get involved, and it becomes this sort of like adventure thing with a dark heart that goes up in all sorts of different ways. And even to the end of the film, you're like, really? Is this a kid's film? That's kind of dark. So it is kind of even the animation style. The animation style is very Tim Burton. It's a bit, I think it's computer animated, but it's made to look almost a bit like it's stop motion. But
Okay.
everybody has long angled knees and short torsos and big heads, and it's So it's a very sort of specific sort of style of animation, and I thought it was all right. I think I'll give it a 3 out of 5. I like the fact that it's not your usual kiddie fare, because there's a lot of kiddie fare. Like compared, I watched this in short not that long after I watched the film called Animal Crackers with my daughter, and that was just so forgettable. I mean, that was so forgettable. I'm not even going to bother trying to remember that film. But this I thought was at least different. But although it starts off being narrated by a cat, and this cat is voiced by Ricky Gervais, and that just puts me right off, because Ricky Gervais is one of those things who is a little bit like kryptonite to me. I do not understand why so many people like him, and there's just something about his smug way of doing things that just makes me go, it's his voice. No, I immediately don't like this. I immediately am inclined to not like this, and it's rubbish. So I would give the Willoughbys 3 out of 5. I think if you wanted animation kid story that isn't your usual kid story, has a little bit of darkness in it, that is quite amusing in some bits, I would recommend the Willoughbys. So that's 3 out of 5 for that.